right, so we created our panel discussion. Yeah, that one's great. Idea following our Victory Over Violence town hall, and it's pretty well received. So we would ask you to maybe give us a couple extra minutes past 5 as I kind of talk with Chief Seraphin here about some of the things that are happening with police in our community. So I like to use this comparison with police officers and teachers. Both are expressing a feeling of being under attacked, underappreciated, and really struggling, and people are moving away, I hear, from police work, school teachers. And what would you say is one, the biggest difference between policing today than when you started? And what would you say to someone who you're trying to get involved in policing today?
One of the biggest differences, and I guess there's a couple of bits. There's the obvious one that people talk about with regards to technology and how that's affected. That's a huge difference for us. I like visual aids. So when I first went up to the detectives in June of 1999, there was one cell phone for the detective bureau, and if you were on call, you got to carry this bad boy around. The rest of us all had pagers. So so things like that, things like have indeed changed, and whether it's been body cameras and current cell phones and technology and some of the evidence that we can get for that, or get from those things. One of the things, my visual aids are on here. However, some of the other discussions that we've sort of, as you and I have had some talk about it, is this gun violence and how this sort of permeates, and how sometimes things are different than they were. However, I started in 94. In 91 and 92 was Rodney King and LA riots. So some of what we felt before, there's sort of an ebb and a flow, and it's up and it's down. We had Ferguson in 2014, and these things do impact how police feel. That every day, if you come to work and someone says, "You're not doing a good job," I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like the other. It does make an impact, and it does, and we have to own some of those things. But that's, I guess, one of the things that I see right now is that we're on one of those upticks with that. Now, your question was, how do you get people to? What do you tell somebody? And who wants to get into law enforcement? And I would say, well, there's a variety of different things. It's still a good and noble profession. We need people to treat others with grace and respect. That's one of my, and I think I heard that several times today already in some fashion or another. We need our officers, all officers, not just Urbana, to treat the citizens with grace and respect. And while you might have to have an event that, well, we had to tackle somebody after this particular thing, we still need to pick them up then and treat them with grace and respect after we've taken whatever the necessary action might be. I think it makes people have to think about why they want to do this. It's not easy right now. We have all of the agencies, and I know the police leadership over there, and Sheriff, if you don't mind me saying, the list for correction officers at the jail is pretty short. I think it's 0. So we need people to do certain types of work. We want them to be motivated to come in. We want people to come in with an attitude of service, and we're making headway, but it is not an easy journey.
You know, I just think about, again, some of those, intentional conversations that we've had as it relates to specifically black communities and policing, and our issues that we have around trust. Are historical, they're earned, the lack of trust on both sides. And I think we have to acknowledge that. So I was pleased to hear you say the idea of treating everyone with dignity and respect is an important part of this change in policing that we have to have.
Oh, absolutely. I think when you have, everybody comes with certain expectations about situations. You drive up to a traffic light, and if you've got the green light, you're expecting somebody else to stop. It's a very it's a small thing, and we all kind of get that. But people have certain things and theories and thoughts and biases, and we've had training of all different types we do with our officers. But we have to make them aware that you're coming into these things, recognize it, acknowledge it, and make your decisions on the behavior, the case involved, and as objectively as you can. I just think that's something, and I think we have to recognize that. And I think there's a piece of this, as you've said, that has to do with historically. This just didn't happen overnight, and these are things. And I've learned something. I know that Minnie Pearson, I think, is here in the back. I've learned from conversations with her over the years about her experiences and how that impacts her and how she sees and views things, and that we need to be cognizant of those things as we police.
You and I did a WDWS radio show one day, and I gave some examples of the times I've been stopped, and you said, "Yeah, I appreciate your examples. I just wish you hadn't shared the Urbana ones."
Right, and yeah, I mean, I really think that the officers will go in every day and do the best that they can, but we're not perfect.
You dealt with some very difficult issues as chief in your short tenure. What would you say is the most difficult issue you've had to address? Why do you say that? And then how did you resolve it?
So, well, first of all, I don't know, 3.5 years is about the life of an NFL running back. So I don't know if that's short or long career as a police chief. Clearly, the issues brought up through, as you mentioned, Leah Lewis and George Floyd, and how those things sort of colored policing for us, and how we have to try and be cognizant of those things. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, and all this was done under the umbrella of a pandemic. In January and February of 2020, we were in early meetings, and I know I saw some of my Carl friends here in the back. We were having meetings about what is the impact of this, and then these other issues sort of kicked off. And so now we have to, how are we going to manage all of these particular things? And one of our greatest ways to address some of these issues, especially with leadership of organizations, is to be in the same room, to have a cup of coffee. As she said earlier, to break bread. And all of those things were stripped away as we're trying to navigate very complex issues. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about with this. And how do you talk about race, and how does that fit in? And now we can't even have a real conversation because we're trying to all figure out Zoom for the very first time. And so that really compounded, I think, some of that and slowed, I think, some of the healing and some of the conversations and the relationship building. So those issues, and I think your follow-up was, and how did you resolve it? I don't know that we fully have. I think we're still working on it. That's why I come to Coalition. That's why we have conversations. That's why that's why we continue this sort of work. That's why we look at things like traffic stops. That's why we continue to, we went through this process for our use of force policy. All of those things, it's an ongoing sort of effort, and I don't think you just get to the finish line with this and go, okay, well, we've done that, we're done, we're going back to what we used to do. I think you continue to do that, and you change. I'm not the same guy I was, as I told you the other day. I'm not the same guy I was as when I took this chair 3.5 years ago.
So this idea around police accountability, I think, is at a new level, heightened level of discussion, engagement. I hear the Back to Blue people talk regularly about lack of appreciation for police. On your way out, talk about police accountability. It's happening here locally. It's happening nationally. These are much more intentional discussions than I think we've ever had. What do you think about police accountability today?
First of all, it's necessary. I don't think nobody wants, no police officer I know wants an abusive police officer standing next to them. So I think that's sometimes I think it feels like, or sometimes there's a sense of, well, the cops always want to protect their own and whatnot. One of the things I will tell you is I find this sort of interesting, and this is an observation that I've had for years and years. I was on our local effort on the multi-jurisdictional investigative team, and it's a multi-agency group of officers. Whenever there's an event that occurs where an officer has to use deadly force, then under the umbrella of the state police and detectives from different agencies come together and work on cases. So I know when something were to happen, automatically, police-involved shooting, people immediately, there's one segment that runs over to this corner. The cop did it wrong. And then another group of people run over to that corner, and the cops always did it right. And none of them have investigated anything. They just automatically, I got this. And then what do? We jump on social media. I intentionally do not have a Facebook page, and I don't think I ever need one. And so those things, and so then everybody's temperature goes up through the roof. And so I guess some of the point of that slight rambling is that I think there needs to be accountability. I think it needs to be thoughtful. I think it needs to be proportionate to just, what's a big principle when it comes to crime and punishment books is proportionality. And I think sometimes I don't also, just like when someone, a citizen, if you will, makes a misstep, they don't immediately go to prison forever. If we have an officer who makes a mistake in a situation, accountability is one thing, but I think it does need to be proportional. So, I just think if there's understanding and education from both sides on these issues, all of these issues, I think it's super helpful.
I once again want to thank you for your leadership as Chief of Police in Urbana. I hope you stay involved in our community and activity. You've got an important voice to play, and I hope you stay involved. And yeah.
Good. Yes. I'm not running. I'm not going anywhere else immediately. So I don't have a home in Tennessee or Florida or somewhere that I'm off to. But I think there is. I think there's a place for all of us to continue to stay involved in some fashion, and that's whatever it is. And that'll be one of my final pitches here. Is I don't care what it is that you do, what it is that you like to do. When it gets down to all of these different issues, and as you just talked about, I absolutely, positively think everybody should be involved. And I think all of those things are critical. And so if it's coaching basketball, if it's taking scouts camping, if it's working at the Boys and Girls Club or volunteering for the YMCA, any of those things help with the issues that we're having.
Thank you once again. Give me a round of applause, Chief Seraphin. All right, so we've got you're getting some stands, man. You're getting some standing up there. Look at that. All right.